Welcome to Saints Take 5, a true crime commentary channel. So if you follow true crime cases and you're looking for a place to hang out and continue the conversation about cases you're probably already familiar with, then this might be the place for you. Hit the subscribe button to increase the likelihood of my videos showing up on your homepage, and if you hit the bell in addition to the subscribe button, you'll be notified every time I upload a video. In the early afternoon of Saturday, September 6th, 1975, 22-year-old Sylvia Lwowski slid into the passenger seat of her best friend Lauren's car, and they headed to the Staten Island Mall for a day of shopping. Sylvia looked down at the heart-shaped diamond engagement ring sparkling on her finger and happily mentioned that she had a date with Frank later that day. Lauren smiled as she turned the steering wheel, then admired the way her own engagement ring twinkled in the sunshine. Sylvia and Lauren have been best friends since childhood, and although they spoke on the phone daily, they primarily spent their time with their fiancés, so it was refreshing to have girl time together. They once had hoped that the boys would become best friends too, and they could double date and everyone would live happily ever after, but unfortunately that wasn't the case. Lauren's fiancé wasn't impressed with Sylvia's fiancé. After their first meeting, David had expressed that Frank came off like the kind of guy that thinks he's better than everyone else, and he made it clear that he didn't want to hang out with Frank again. Lauren, however, didn't have any strong opinions about Frank. As long as Sylvia was happy, that was all that mattered. Sylvia never mentioned where she and Frank planned to go for the evening. Since it was customary for men to plan the dates back then, it's possible that even Sylvia was unaware of their destination. The mall was particularly crowded, even for a Saturday. Lauren specifically remembers having to park in what she calls no man's land, the parking spaces so far from the entrance that people rarely have to use them. I think that this memory is a testament to just how ordinary this day truly was. The shitty parking spot remains one of the only things that really stood out. The girls had an enjoyable shopping experience. Sylvia was her normal self. She didn't reveal a big secret, nor did she seem to be keeping one. She didn't go on any rants about anyone, or vent about anything distressing. She was in a perfectly good mood. Lauren can't recall what they bought that day. It was so very long ago. 50 years can tarnish the most cherished memories. But she still remembers Sylvia's smile, her laughter, and the feeling that overall they had a great day doing things that best friends do. However, as they prepared to leave the mall, Sylvia's mood kind of shifted. Lauren noticed a subtle change. Sylvia had a puss on, as she put it, because they were running late. Sylvia wouldn't have had much time to prepare for her date. Known for her punctuality, Sylvia was visibly anxious and annoyed. And though she didn't express her frustration vocally, Lauren, who knew her well, could tell that Sylvia was silently pouting. Around 4 p.m., Lauren dropped Sylvia off at the home she shared with her parents, Eva and Joe, and her 16-year-old brother, Anthony. The girls said goodbye, and Sylvia hurried up her walkway. This would be the last time that Lauren would ever see her best friend. Sylvia Lwowski would never return from her date with Frank.
You know it, oh Lord, you know it, for someday. You know it, oh Lord, you know it, for someday. You know it, oh Lord, you know it, for someday. You know it, oh Lord, you know it, for someday.
Imagine that your 22-year-old daughter goes out on a date with her fiancé, and around 11 p.m. he shows up at your door without her. He tells you that they got in a fight in his car. She threw her eyeglasses at the dashboard, exited the vehicle, and walked off. The details of his story changed. In one version, she got out at a stop sign. In another, it was an intersection. In another, it was during a traffic jam. In some stories, he seemed to lose sight of her. In others, she just refused to get back in the car, declaring she'd take a bus instead. From your understanding, she walked off wearing her engagement ring, but years later, someone claimed that they knew he still had the ring in his possession. Today we're going to be discussing the 1975 disappearance of Sylvia Alice Lwowski from Staten Island, New York. In my opinion, this is one of the saddest cases that I've ever heard of, because it wasn't even really a case. It was treated as a voluntary missing, that Sylvia just walked off and started a new life. I'll let you guys be the judge of that one. There really isn't a lot of information out there about Sylvia. She seems to be like a ghost, almost that never even existed. A lot of my information that I got was from web sleuths, and understanding that a lot of people don't like to read forums like that. So I wanted to kind of put something together that's easier for people who learn visually. First, I'm going to start out with some background information, and most of this is being told from the perspective of Sylvia's best friend, who we will call Lauren. I have changed some names um, of Sylvia's brother, Sylvia's fiancé, and Sylvia's best friend for privacy purposes. Sylvia Alice Lwowski was born on April 28, 1953, in Frankfurt, Germany, the first child of Joseph, an American soldier stationed overseas, and Eva, the vibrant young German woman that stole his heart. 6 years later, Eva and Joe welcomed Sylvia's little brother, who we'll call Anthony, to the world. Sylvia probably teetered between loving playmate, partner in crime, jealous rival, and protective second mommy, the way big sisters often do. In the early 1960s, when Sylvia was 9 and Anthony a toddler, Joe and Eva began a new chapter in the United States, ultimately making their home in Great Kills on Staten Island in a cozy duplex on Goodall Street, with a large backyard perfect for chasing fireflies on warm summer nights and building towering snowmen on gray winter days. Life on Goodall Street was all good. Kids played games like kick the can and hopscotch in the streets, shoved cap guns in their belts and pretended to be cowboys, traded baseball cards and yo-yo tricks, and families gathered for cookouts and Tupperware parties. Staten Island's bountiful farmlands, serene beaches, tranquil forest trails, and its secluded yet proximal location to New York City proved to be a fantastic place to raise children and begin living the American dream. John F. Kennedy was president, and Chevy Impalas cruised down Richmond Avenue, playing songs by the Beatles and Elvis Presley. When Sylvia was in the 4th or 5th grade, she became friends with Lauren. The friendship continued to grow stronger throughout middle school and high school. It turned out that Lauren only lived about 2 miles from Sylvia's house, which was a quick bike ride in those days. The beach was a big part of Staten Island kid life. Sylvia was always poking around in the sand, searching for more seashells to add to her collection. One time, the girls discovered baby seahorses. They scooped them up in some kind of cup or bucket, and Sylvia took them home with her. A few days later, Lauren noticed the seahorses happily thriving in the saltwater tank the Lwowskis had on display at their home. Sylvia loved nature and adored animals. She had dogs, cats, hamsters, fish, you name it. The Lwowskis even had a flock of birds waddling around the backyard: ducks, geese, and a turkey. It was always exciting when the animals would have babies. The Lwowski home seemed to be a place Lauren remembers fondly. Sylvia was a great swimmer, and the kids would spend hours in the backyard swimming pool, likely diving for pennies, playing Marco Polo, and seeing who could hold their breath the longest. They also had a garden where the kids enjoyed plucking vegetables from the vine and cradling them in their shirts around harvest time. Mr. Joe, Sylvia's dad, could sometimes be seen around the house quietly focusing on fixing things and building things. Other times he could be very outgoing, eager to entertain guests by cooking some food, telling funny stories, and doing flips, handstands, and cartwheels. He liked his beer, he liked people, and he was a well-liked guy. He seemed like an interesting character that made people feel very welcomed. There wasn't as much information available about Sylvia's mother, Eva, or her little brother, Anthony, but their unwavering attempts to find Sylvia after she went missing reflect just how much they really love her. During their teenage years, Sylvia and Lauren began exhibiting an entrepreneurial spirit. They spent their summers thinking of ways to earn shopping money. One summer, they painted a room in Lauren's house. Lauren's parents were so impressed that they recommended their services to their friends. Word spread, and soon the girls were earning far more than they imagined. They took pride in their work and treated people's homes with respect. However, they did get silly sometimes. One time, they decided to paint each other, which was all fun and games until they had to figure out how to get it out of their hair. Another summer, the dads helped the girls attach an old freezer to a motorized scooter, and they sold ice cream out of it to the entire neighborhood. They were quite successful, becoming a real competitor to the local ice cream man, until the equipment malfunctioned. During the school year, the girls focused on their studies. Sylvia was a straight-A student and played piccolo in the marching band. One time, Lauren and Sylvia were playing badminton doubles in their phys ed class, paired up with coaches or teachers. Sylvia and her partner teacher were running for the birdie at the same time, and the teacher yielded for Sylvia to take the shot. But when Sylvia swung, she whacked the teacher in the butt. Lauren exploded in laughter, but Sylvia's face was burning red with embarrassment. Sylvia was very creative and loved art and music. She enjoyed drawing, and one day Sylvia presented Lauren with a sketch she had done. It was a portrait of Lauren, and I teared up when I read that Lauren has that sketch framed in her home to this day. Now we're going to jump to 1971 to 1975. These were the college years for Sylvia and Lauren. Sylvia was a biology major at Wagner College at Grimes Hill, while Lauren attended a different college. By this time, Sylvia and Lauren both had their driver's licenses, and while Lauren had a car, Sylvia did not. Mr. Joe was working at Wagner College at the time, so Sylvia would commute with her father in the family vehicle. The girls were in regular contact, but their social circles had expanded a bit to include groups that didn't always include each other. They were often busy with their studies and extracurricular activities. Sylvia was a part of a music-centered sorority, Alpha Tau Mu? Sorry if I'm saying that wrong, and a national band society, Tau Beta Sigma. She also played piccolo in the college's marching band and regularly made an appearance on the dean's list. Lauren's older brother was married with 2 kids, and they became Sylvia's new neighbors, residing on the other side of the duplex. And Lauren often went over there to babysit for them, and that gave her more Sylvia time too. So the girls would fill each other in on the new friends they had made, the cute guys on campus, and which classes and professors were their favorites. One of the highlights of Sylvia's time at Wagner was when her biology class took a trip to Bermuda. She got the opportunity of a lifetime to swim with dolphins, which was a significant memory for her. In the spring of 1973, Sylvia was dating a handsome upperclassman that was either in or joining the Navy. Their relationship was brief, and I didn't get the impression that they were serious about each other. It seemed like they had a strong physical attraction and were having a great time together, but I don't think they considered a future together. Things got real serious real quick, though, when Sylvia discovered that she was pregnant with his child. Sylvia and the Navy guy had some long, serious discussions and mutually agreed that it was best to terminate the pregnancy. Sylvia wanted children, and she wanted a family, but not with Navy guy, and not now. He would be deployed and live a life of travel, and she wasn't finished college, and an unwed mother at that time period would mean disgracing her family, being shunned from society, and women didn't have the resources to raise children alone back then, the way women do now. There was virtually no such thing as daycare centers, and while women could work, they often didn't bring in a living wage. Child support laws weren't federally enacted until the year she went missing, 1975. It was an all around disaster. Sylvia confided in Lauren about the ordeal, and Lauren took Sylvia to a clinic for a consultation. And then a few days later, the Navy guy accompanied Sylvia to the procedure, and he paid for it. Navy guy was as supportive as he could be, but he was soon leaving for the military. As far as Lauren knows, Sylvia never saw or spoke to Navy guy again. This was a pivotal event in Sylvia's life, a wake-up call. She vowed to never be in that position again. She never told her parents or anyone other than Lauren and Navy guy. She suffered in silence and recovered in secret, pretending to be fine at school and at home with her family. One day, when Lauren came over to babysit her newest niece, Sylvia came over to chat, and Lauren could tell it was absolute torture for Sylvia to be around the baby. Her eyes would fill up with tears any time she saw children. Lauren would keep this secret for years, only revealing it long after Sylvia's disappearance. A year later, in 1974, Sylvia met Frank through one of her Wagner band friends. He was a member of the Staten Island Orchestra, and he worked as a private music instructor. He often performed at outdoor concerts, parties, and weddings. Lauren would accompany Sylvia to his gigs, and Lauren said Sylvia would just sit there and swoon. She also said that they seemed happy and in love. Lauren would smile and shake her head at the musical lovebirds. Lauren soon found love as well with a gentleman named David. Lauren and David met up with Sylvia and Frank at one of Frank's outdoor concerts. This was the day I had mentioned in the teaser, when David met Frank for the first time and decided that he didn't like Frank. He said that Frank acted like he was better than him since Frank was a college guy, and David wasn't. It's a shame the boys didn't hit it off like the girls had hoped. I don't know if this encounter said more about Frank or David. Was Frank really a narcissistic college brat, or was David feeling like an insecure outcast? Maybe it was a little bit of both. This created a compartmentalized dynamic where Sylvia's time with her boyfriend and her best friend was primarily segregated. Although there is nothing wrong with that, it prevented Lauren and Frank from ever getting to know each other well, or allow them to witness and assess how Sylvia interacted with each of them. Sylvia and Lauren graduated from their colleges in May of 1975. Sometime that same year, Frank proposed to Sylvia. Sylvia knew it was coming since she had been ring shopping with him. The ring was estimated to be a 1-carat, heart-cut clear diamond mounted on a white gold band. It was gorgeous and rumored to cost around $5,000, which was a lot in those days, especially for a music man. Her family rented an event venue at Fort Wadsworth to host their engagement party. Lauren attended and described it as an intimate event with far less than 50 people. She had a nice time and got the chance to briefly meet Frank's parents. From my understanding, this was the first time Sylvia's parents were meeting Frank's parents as well. Although the couple did not have a date in mind for the wedding yet, Sylvia hoped to honeymoon in Bermuda, the same place she fell in love with on her Wagner biology trip. I feel like every bride-to-be experiences that heart-dropping moment when they accidentally misplace their ring, drop it into a narrow crevice, or temporarily lose it. It's an important lesson to learn. Don't take your ring off. Ever. Sylvia was no exception. One day, Sylvia and her family had finished eating a meal, and Sylvia twisted her engagement ring off of her finger in preparation to wash the dishes. She walked over to the kitchen table and set her ring down on top of it. Later, she couldn't find it. She panicked and insisted that she left it on the table, but it wasn't there. She searched everywhere for it. Mr. Joe ended up finding her ring in his coffee can full of aluminum beer can tabs that he kept on top of the refrigerator. After opening his beers, Mr. Joe would remove the tabs and toss them on the table. When the tabs would accumulate, he would use his hand to brush the piles off the edge of the table into his coffee can. The white gold ring blended perfectly with the silver tabs. Sylvia was so relieved, and she promised to never take it off again. The summer of 1975 probably felt like the last hurrah before the girls entered that thing all the parents warned us about, the real world. College provided a daily routine and likely gave the girls the sense that they were moving toward something. But now what? Sylvia was 22 years old, recent college graduate, had a handsome husband lined up, but would occasionally get frustrated contemplating what to do with her life, like many young people her age do. In some ways, she was likely feeling grown up, independent, and ready to take on the world with the freedom that comes with becoming an adult. But in other ways, she was probably feeling annoyed by her circumstances. There's no way to know for sure, so all of this is speculation. But being an adult living under your parents' roof can be frustrating. You have to abide by their rules and curfews. Sylvia wasn't working, so she was financially reliant on her parents, and she didn't have a vehicle of her own to go where she wanted. This was the norm for the time period, though. Most young ladies did live at home with their families until they married. College was more like a credential to attract a higher class husband. For women, degrees often rotted on the mantle, because being a wife and mother was the most significant job for a woman. And most households only had one car for the husband's commute to work. And if a wife ever needed to go somewhere, the husband would take her. But this was the 1970s, and times were changing, so there's no way to know for sure what was going through Sylvia's mind at the time. Lauren and Sylvia's parents were both very traditional and quite strict. While both families were religious, Lauren's expected her to attend church every Sunday. No excuses. Lauren's outfits were closely examined before she left the house. Shoulders must be covered, skirt length would be measured, and you might as well take your butt back upstairs if you think you're going to wear something tight or see-through. Young ladies don't walk or drive around alone at night. Curfew is 10 p.m., and boys must come to the door and introduce themselves if they'd like to take you out. Frank also lived with his parents, and even he was having struggles. One day, Sylvia confided in Lauren about a disturbing incident she witnessed while at Frank's house. Sylvia said that Frank and his mother got into a big fight, and it got physical. Lauren commented that if she were in Sylvia's shoes, she wouldn't stay in a relationship with him. Men shouldn't strike women, especially their mothers. Lauren didn't press for more details, and Sylvia didn't elaborate. At the end of August in 1975, Sylvia had a graduation pool party at her house. She invited her Wagner friends, sorority sisters and band friends, and of course Lauren. Lauren said that Frank did not attend, although she doesn't remember why. Whatever the reason, she doesn't recall his absence being a big deal or anything. She also doesn't remember if alcohol was served at the party or not. The legal drinking age at the time was 18, and the guests were in their early 20s, so they would certainly be able to. But Sylvia and Lauren were not drinkers. They didn't partake in drugs or alcohol. They didn't go bar hopping, and Sylvia's brother makes it clear that Sylvia was not a party girl. However, Mr. Joe was certainly adding tabs to his coffee can, if you know what I mean. Mr. Joe was being very chatty with Sylvia's friends and making himself the center of attention with his acrobatics. He was walking on his hands, which was very common, but this time he was doing it in front of a group of friends that it seemed Sylvia wanted to impress, and her dad's circus tricks were embarrassing the crap out of her. Sylvia was searching the faces of her friends for signs of approval, but it seems like there was more eye rolling and mocking. It sounded like Sylvia was shooting him looks, begging him to stop, hoping he'd get the hint. But when he didn't, she kicked him, and it may have been harder than she intended. This spawned a huge argument between Sylvia and Mr. Joe. If they didn't get everyone's attention before, they certainly had it now. Lauren was utterly shocked. In all the years she knew the Lwowskis, she had never seen Sylvia like this. Lauren felt embarrassed for both of them. The guests couldn't handle the awkwardness, so they started tiptoeing away to their cars while Sylvia and her father continued to yell loudly at each other until they disappeared into the house. Lauren was the only remaining guest, and Sylvia announced that she was going to Lauren's house to spend the night, as she often did when she needed space from her parents. In my opinion, this was a heartbreaking incident to read about, because I got the impression that Mr. Joe was just trying to give his daughter the best graduation party ever. He seemed to want to break the ice, entertain everyone, and encourage them to have a good time. He probably wanted her friends to think Sylvia had a fun household and cool parents. But like every parent knows, our definition of cool is often different from our child's. I also sympathize with Sylvia, though, since she was at that age where she desperately wanted to fit in with a crowd that really weren't true friends to begin with. If you don't feel that you and your family can be authentic around a certain group of people, then they're probably not your people. Sylvia and her father gave each other the silent treatment for several days after this incident. Unfortunately, this happened about a week or two before her disappearance, so I imagine this only compounded Mr. Joe's grief. It serves as a reminder to everyone to think twice about what you say to those you love, because it could be the last thing you ever get to say to them.